companies, organizations adopt in order to address the issue of FGM. So we are looking into ensuring that this becomes not just another boardroom conversation, but it becomes a conversation that is going to give solutions to the endemic issue, or should I say pandemic issue, when it comes to FGM. And tonight we are privileged to be joined by one Mercy Yego. Mercy Yego is an advocate of the Kenya High Courts, and she has been in the advocacy field when it comes to matters women health, especially young girls, especially during their teenage stage, where they will be looked as very vulnerable to the social ills that come with the the predatory manners that we have as a society. And probably if she comes and when she comes in, she'll be able to dispel what needs to be addressed and how specifically we can be able to address the issue of FGM. And that's why I am privileged to be joined by Mercy Yego. But before that, let's take a quick break.
To advertise with us, reach us via the email marketing@courtfm.co.ke or call us on 0714 308 277. Court FM. Let the music play. The Social Room with Likuyani Eli. To advertise with us, reach us via the email marketing@courtfm.co.ke or call us on 0714 308 277. Court FM. Let the music play.
And welcome back. I'm told we are now live on all our, outfits, so you can be able to join into the talk. Ladies and gentlemen, as I promised, Mercy is here with us. And Mercy, great to have you here. Good evening to you. How are you doing?
I'm well, Eli. Good evening. I would say good day to you. Good evening to everyone, and good day to everyone who's joined us today. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very, very fine. Thank you, Mercy. And, I'm trying to have some help here. Everyone deserves some help. This has been a tough day, especially for some of us who have to do the 8 to 5 hours. And then I see you are here ready for us in red. I'm sure you have some. I don't know what you have, Mercy.
For Valentine's, I mean, it's the week, so we're getting there slowly. We're starting it early.
Definitely, as we start this early session of Valentine's, I'm also reminded that really the love that we have for our country, the love we have for the people we care about, is not just the love because it happens. We must be able to practice that which we preach. And that's why, Mercy, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself very fast, and then we can be able to proceed with the conversation. Welcome.
Thank you, Eli. So once again, I mean, you already mentioned my name. My name is Mercy Yego. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, but I've also been in the social advocacy space for over 4 years. And I serve as the regional representative for East and Southern Africa of the Global Youth Consortium Against Harmful Practices. And we have membership in over 5 countries. That's Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Sudan. Sudan is not in our region, but yes, it's in the East and Southern. So Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and the other countries of the ESA, DRC, but we mostly are present in countries that have female genital mutilation being practiced and also child marriages interlinked with it.
Interesting, Mercy. And, when you talk about all the interlinks that exist in our society, one will think, this is a predominantly Kenyan problem. And I want us to get into the stats because that's where we all begin. Probably for some of us who are new to this conversation, we are wondering, why are we even talking about FGM? So maybe, Mercy, if you can outline for us, what exactly is FGM and why is it important at this time of the year or of the month to discuss about it in the first place?
I will start it on a lighter note. You know, a lot of people, whenever I remember when I used to go to school, when you go to other communities, when you go to school, you find a mixture of all kinds of people. And for some communities, the practice is not there. So sometimes when you've been in class, I'd say a vivid example is university. I did my bachelor's in Uganda, and when you're in class, and then they would, your name would come up probably on the list or something, and the lecturer lands on it, or when you're giving a point or something in class, and they said, "Oh, you come from the FGM." They said, Are you mutilated? Did you undergo FGM?" That was usually the question. So on that, so most of the time, that's what usually for people that do not know. Some of our communities have been labeled based on the practice. Then for some people, they do not know about it. So when they meet you and they probably have heard about it, the first thing will always be, "Are you mutilated? Did you undergo the cut?" And sometimes it's stigmatizing. Um, I'd say a lot of times when you label people like that, it's always not good. So don't go around trying to find out if people from communities that are considered to be practice FGM. Don't go asking women on the road when you meet them. Okay, yeah, so now I'll go into the practice. What is FGM? I know there are people who don't even know what female genital FGM is. When I say FGM, it's an abbreviation of female genital mutilation. So there's female genital mutilation or female genital cut. So it's the partial or total removal of the external female genitalia for non-medical reasons. I know when women go to give birth in hospital, sometimes the doctors are put in a situation where they have to make some incisions to make adjustments for the baby to come out, but that specifically does not amount to FGM. So FGM, how we have three types of FGM. Type 1, there's type 1, type 2, and type 3. And type 1 is the partial or total removal of the clitoral glands.
Yeah.
Then type 2 is partial
Mm-hmm.
or total removal of the clitoral glands and the labia minora.
Yeah.
I know if you start imagining how painful that is. Then the other one is the total removal, and then there is the inhibition where they remove all the clitoral glands and the labia minora, and then they stitch.
Okay.
So like that is like the worst among the worst forms of female genital mutilation. So the practice of FGM, about the the Somali community and other communities tend to practice type 2, type 3. But in Kenya, the communities do vary. I'd say FGM is practiced among the Somali, the Samburu, Kisii, the Maasai, Sabaot, Mount Elgon, where I come from, Sabaot or the Sabine,
Yeah.
the Pokot, uh, some other Kalenjin tribes like the Tugen communities from bordering Pokot and Baringo, and some other indigenous communities among the Kalenjin.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I missed that out any, but those are the major ones that do practice FGM in Kenya. In Uganda, that is the Sabine and the there are also Pokots in Uganda and
Mm-hmm.
also Karamojong community. They're called Karapokots because it's a mixture of the community is a mixture of Karimojong and the Pokots. And then, of course, the whole of Somalia. And then Tanzania is the Maasai community. And with the interesting dynamics about East Africa is we have what is known as cross-border FGM,
Mm-hmm.
where people migrate to carry out female genital mutilation.
So you talk about the cross border that happens, Mercy, and I'm here wondering why would even people start moving from place to place in order to perform this? Is it hiding from the aspect of the government watchdogs? Is it because they are going to their maternal, or should I say their origin land, in order to undergo this rite of passage in quotes? Why exactly the cross border?
So, what I'd say across East Africa, there are countries that have implemented or put in place laws to curb the practice of female genital mutilation. I'll
Yeah.
say Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania have put in place laws.
Yeah.
Somalia, we are still making progress. At least we have got Somaliland to put in place some regulations.
Yeah.
And now right now, we've had, which is a very big milestone to address cross-border FGM. We now have what is known as the East African, the ESC Elimination of FGM Bill 2025.
Yeah.
That was tabled last year.
Yeah.
It has undergone the first reading in Parliament and underwent public participation. We had public participation take place last year in November.
Mm-hmm.
And November and December, and we are seeing after the public participation, of course, the public input was brought in, and now we are hoping that the bill would advance to its next stage and be able to be passed into law, and all countries in the East African community will be able to adopt and have the law binding on them. So why the ESC bill came into place is because of cross-border FGM. So what happens is people run away from the law. A lot of cases that I have handled in my work mostly been cases where are being reported of children being crossed over to another country for the practice of FGM. So they're moved and the practice happens and they're brought back later when they feel like the vigilance has died down and no one is watching. Yes. So usually yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that usually what happens is when they note that there is a lot of vigilance in one country, they cross over to the next where their families, usually it's where their families are, and they go ahead to practice. Now, there is with, let's say, refugee communities, you find that even in the refugee camps, they usually leave the camps, go back to their war-torn countries and practice, get the children to undergo FGM and come back, which is something that you would not expect, but that is how far people are willing to go to keep a practice that is, I would say, violence against women and girls to keep going on. Yeah.
So I'm here, I'm listening to you and all the violence that is happening and the fact that this continues to happen under the watch of different governments, different societies and institutions. And that's why the theme of this year is very important when it comes to addressing the issue of FGM. Just the other day, there was should I say the World Day to mark the issue. Yes. And maybe when you look at the whole approach and the methodology that has been used in the past and today to address the issue of FGM among its communities, what do you think is the biggest bottleneck in ensuring that we are effectively addressing FGM with all the issues you've raised?
I'd say I would not point out to one bottleneck because there are several.
Yeah.
But one of them, of course, is enforcement and implementation of the law, considering that this is a practice, not like something that you wear out in the open and say, hey, I've undergone FGM, I'm right here. Or it's something that happens, in broad daylight and you can actually mark and say, oh, this person's actually undergone FGM. Yeah. So what has happened over time is back then in the day, before the laws were put in place, it was always very easy for people to practice FGM. Because there were ceremonies involved and people would be dancing on the street, on the roads, in the community. You see, the way they practice, there were male circumcision. I know you're Luya from the Luya community, and you know how it has the whole ceremony, the kadodi, I don't know how they call it. I know the Bagisa call it kadodi. The whole ceremony. Yeah. How you undergo all of that and, you go running from one home to the other, dancing and all of that. So back then it was celebrated like that. Yeah. And with the coming of the law, people started to hide. And now FGM is practiced in secret and in hiding. And with that, you are unable to trace easily how it's happened. And now it's starting to shift for some communities from young children and
Yeah.
moving to adults. But with children, if they're not coming to school, if they're not going to, how you will be able to know that has happened is if a child fails to show up to school during the circumcision season, like now after the season, now children are expected to report back to school, and you don't see some kids in school.
Yeah.
Then that's when you're able to know, okay, yeah, as a teacher, you're like, okay, something is wrong. And usually when you try to check, especially for the communities, you'll find that why the child is not coming to school is because they've undergone FGM. So the bottlenecks of why some of the things that have caused the practice to continue, there are so many factors, and one of them, of course, like we've put it in the topic of today's session, is economic disparities.
Yeah.
There is the economic aspect. There is the aspect of um, there's the aspect of culture itself in general, patriarchy. There is issues to do with religion, but some of the highest driving factors, of course, have been religion and culture.
Yeah.
And but in the interlinkage is the issue of economic disparities.
So
And
yeah, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead. No worries. Sorry, I've cut you short. Proceed.
it's okay. So what I was going to say that the issue of economic disparities plays out in such a way that you find that their families, when they are not able to afford to take care of themselves, they consider giving over their children for marriage, or
Yeah.
their hand in marriage,
Yeah.
in exchange for a certain number of cows, and that is what would sustain the family. In some of the research that I've carried out in the field, where we're trying to put together some data and statistics,
Yeah.
in the one-on-one sessions with some of the girls in the community, you find about 13 or 14, usually that's the age.
Yeah.
They'd say, I'm not going back to school next year, or I'm not in school because I'm waiting to get married so that my family can be able to afford food, uh, to be able to have food. So those are some of the things when you look at them, some of that. But then generally, back in the day, the communities, it was always when you were considered to be of marriageable age, you had to undergo FGM because it's a rite of passage into womanhood. If
Yeah.
you're not mutilated, you'd be considered a girl or a child.
And people don't want to be called children, especially when it comes to those young women, in especially those ones who have hit the teenage age. Do you do
Yeah.
you feel it's more of managing the mind, or conditioning the mind of these young people in such a way they believe that if I do not go or undergo FGM, then I am useless, in quotes, to my family? Because women generally are supposed to be a source of wealth to the parents specifically. Is it a conditioning issue, Mercy?
I'd say in a way, because when you brought up issues to do with social norms, one of the things that makes enforcement of enforcement of the ending of female genital mutilation difficult is the social norm, the mindset issue, how it's deeply ingrained in the culture, and is something that is passed on from generation to generation. So no, it's not something that you wake up and say, I'm just going to come and say, okay, guys, you need to stop, and I will stop. It's something that has been passed on and ingrained over time in the community. And because of that social conditioning of, yeah, you need to undergo this practice so that you can graduate from being a girl to a woman,
Yeah.
you find that it creates an environment for continuation of the practice. But if you look at Kenya, where we have education has been in place for a long time, and most of the communities have adopted and taking their daughters and their children to school, you see that most of these girls start to question
Yeah.
whether it's right for them to actually undergo the practice. But with the continuous reinforcement back home, you find them wanting or desiring to continue the practice. But a lot of times you find that most of them are forced into the practice. As compared to back then, where it was you desired because you didn't want to feel left out, now you find that you're being forced to actually undertake the practice even when you do not want to. And
Yeah.
because it's mostly children who are not of consenting age, they are under the protection and leadership of their parents. they are not able to consent and say, I want to or I don't want to undergo the practice of hormone rejuvenation. So they are vulnerable and need all the protection that they could get.
You talk about protection, and then I'm thinking, I have an opportunity as a father or as a mother to make the most out of this situation because, again, as I said earlier on, women was seen as a source of wealth to the families, especially when they get to the age of marriage. Some of them are married off at very tender age. Maybe if I ask you, comparatively with our peers across the region, where do we see the most in terms of women getting married off at an earlier age, simply because, especially for those communities, I'm specifically talking about those communities that are practicing FGM, where do we see these trends working most? Because as a country, we will say Kenya is doing better. Kenya has shown, the efforts in addressing the issue of FGM and early child marriage. From your experience in the field and what you've been able to address in the recent past, how are we doing in addressing the issue of early child marriage and FGM?
How are we doing? I'd say as a country, there's a lot of progress that has been made compared to the other countries in the region. But again, because of the nature of our communities across East Africa, we're communities that are interlinked and interconnected. So borders do not define us. So the practice moves across borders. And Kenya has been considered a hotspot
Yeah.
for cross-border FGM. Um, but what I can say is that across the region, I think Uganda has the lowest prevalence.
Mm-hmm.
Why the lowest prevalence? Because it has only two tribes that about three tribes. Yeah, it's two tribes, two major tribes,
Yeah.
and one. So I would say about three tribes that actually practice FGM. So in the region is one of the countries with the lowest prevalence. But Kenya has made a lot of progress in terms of pushing to eliminate the practice. But in Kenya specifically, if you look at the communities with the highest prevalence is, the Somali community and the Samburu, the Kisii and the Maasai have the highest prevalence when it comes to the practice of FGM, also the Pokot
Yeah.
in that case. But those are like the highest prevalence is among those communities. But a lot has been done. But why is the prevalence high among the Somali, the Samburu, and the Maasai? It's because of cross-border. Again, you find that because of the porous borders, our communities tend to crisscross. So
Yeah.
when you know the enforcement is happening in Kenya, you move over to Somalia, you go practice FGM and then come back. Same thing, the Somalis, the people will come from Uganda, from Pokot in Uganda, they will move over to Kenya, carry out the practice, and then go back. So because of that, the practice has continued for a long time in the region, despite national laws being in place. But I'd say tremendous efforts has happened over the years. I mean, we have dropped from over coming from a span of like 70% overall, coming down to 15%
Yeah.
in Kenya. So that's like a huge milestone. The survey, the statistics carried out in 2022 puts that at about 14.8%.
Yeah.
So that's a very huge shift.
I love the fact that you're talking about, the statistics that are improving and everything that has been done. I want to, again, flip back to where it all began. Corporates, organization, governments, from profit to not-for-profit organizations, all putting in the effort and saying we need to invest enough in order to address the issue of FGM. When you talk about the issue of the money that is pumped into this whole activity, when you talk about the issue of investments, are we getting the priorities wrong? And I know it's a tricky one because maybe that's where a lot of money is coming from. But tell me, from your own experience, what are we not getting right?
I do not want to say what are we not getting right. I'd like to say that I know there's been the conversation of donor aid, donor aid has reduced. Trump is taking his money. Other donors have developed cold feet around,
Yeah.
investing. And now a lot of organizations are being told, we're not going to invest in FGM any longer. Please integrate with other interlinking issues like SRHR, healthcare, so that we can still cover FGM, bring all the other. So FGM is not being addressed as a single issue.
Yeah.
But um, in terms of investment, a lot of investment has been made. And over the years, it has helped because, right now, globally, about 230 million girls
Yeah.
worldwide have undergone FGM.
Yeah.
And that's a very huge number. And that does not call for investment to stop. It means we need to accelerate because cannot say we have invested enough and still have such high numbers
Yeah.
still in place. And during COVID time, we saw the numbers increase when there was lockdown and law enforcement of the law, was kind of slowed down. A investment in terms of healthcare relating to FGM, where all the resources are now being focused to health
Yeah.
specifically and not uh, into FGM. We saw the numbers increase. And I think that's something that signals that no, investment should not stop. Investment needs to continue. But now the
Yeah.
question is on the sustainability
Yeah.
of this investment. How do we sustain the investment and also the momentum so that when Trump decides, oh, I want to take back my money, what happens? Our government owning up to it and saying, we are taking this bull by the horns and saying we are ending FGM, we're going to put our resources into this and ensure that we streamline in all our programs and make sure that we have a budget for the police because a lot of times the bottlenecks come in implementation. When you mention that there is a case of FGM in so and so, you call the police and say, hey, this happened here. Some communities, they find they call and tell you. I remember an instance where I was called and told, kindly provide fuel for the police car to go and arrest the perpetrators.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, so our government doesn't have enough resources when it comes to enforcing the end of female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
For example, the police increase the budget on that. As a government, ensure that we have enough to be able to have a form of self-reliance and we're not necessarily relying on donor aid.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when we talk about investment, it's not monetary wise only, but also investing as a community to ensure that, we are ending the practice as communities.
So, listening to you, there are a lot of good things that are happening, Wakili, but there are also a lot of, gaps that still need to be addressed to its finality. I want to talk about the issue of taking care of the perpetrators. I know you've cited there are a lot of strong legislations that are in place. Specifically, I might not be able to quote which one because, unlike yourself, I'm not Wakili. But I am thinking if we were really very serious about ending FGM, no amount of money would eliminate FGM if the laws of the land continue to be disrespected and trampled upon. What is it that is making it difficult for us as a country and as a region to really ensure that the laws are working for us? Remember, there are a lot of dynamics, and I'm sorry I'm leading you on. The dynamics are more of the traditional practices, the belief system, the religion, the culture, among others. But then there is the law of the land. I'm talking about the constitutions, some of these rights that are enshrined within the constitution. How do we create a balance between the supreme laws of the land, or the supreme law of the land, and the cultural practices so that we have a synergy and not look like we are fighting against a vice that is, according to the community, is not one?
I know when you talk about that, there's of course freedom of expression. There's also the freedom and the right to actually practice your cultural beliefs, and as a community, a right to belong, a sense of identity as a people, and not to be erased, and all of that. Uh, and one of the arguments most people that are practicing FGM will always say, this is our culture. This is a part of us. This is who we are. But then on the other end, if you look at it, why would you call something that continues to harm women your culture? Why would you call a practice that leads to death, that, causes permanent impairment in the life of a woman, of a girl, causes, some of them actually end up becoming paralyzed for life. I have a distant auntie that actually became paralyzed and later on died after undergoing female genital mutilation. So imagine how many other women out there have had that, have ended up being in such a situation, who have lost their lives, girls
Yeah.
who have lost their lives,
Yeah.
infants who have lost their lives because of a culture,
Yeah.
our culture, what
Yeah.
we call our culture. And it's not something that we agree to have as women. Majority of the women, when you ask them, do you want to undergo the practice? It's always no. But
No.
because of, society, conformity, the desire, not just that, it's not even a desire, being forced to belong to what is considered culture, you end up undergoing the practice. So in trying to balance between constitutional rights and, cultural cultural rights, or say trying to belong, finding a sense of identity. I don't think we should be in a situation where we are upholding a practice that
Yeah.
violates the rights of women. Does not This is a practice that does not allow women to decide. You're not allowed to decide. This is something that is forced down on you. You are put in a place where your health is put in danger.
Yeah.
You, as your body autonomy is also violated. You have no choice. Your body, you're not able to decide what happens to your body,
Yeah.
because this is something that you're being forced to undertake for the joy, or for the of other people, not for you as an individual. Yeah. So I'd say, as regards FGM, I don't think we're going to consider or look at it as something that would have a balance between constitutional rights versus culture. This is something that is a human rights violation, and we should treat it as that. I mean, we've had the practice of FGM be considered as a harmful practice,
Yeah.
and even in Kenya, we've been having the discussion of reviewing the current bill on FGM, and one of the things that has we've been advocating for is for it to be, the wording to change from harmful practices to violence, to be considered a form of violence.
Yeah.
But it's not yet. It's not something that has been accepted to be changed. But if you look at it, it is a form of violence
Yeah.
against women,
Yeah.
and it should be treated as such. So I don't think we're going to ever get to that place. And I don't want us to even think of ever getting to that place where we consider that there will be a balance when it comes to FGM. We'll not treat it as such, as something that cultural right. No, it isn't. It's a violation of women's rights.
It's a
And
violation
girls.
of women's rights, says Mercy Yego. Mercy Yego is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and she is here tonight speaking to us about the issue of the disparities that exist and the fight against FGM. Just the other day, we commemorated the World Day to fight against FGM, or end FGM, and quite a lot of conversations around them. I mean, I at one point I was thinking we are already doing very well, and there are a lot of strides we've made. Of course, we do agree these strides have been made, but there's still so much that can be done in order to address this effectively. If you're joining us for now, it's your time to ask questions, if any. I see there are a lot of you who also tuned in through our TikTok channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Great to see all of you who are listening through. And as we already said, we are tonight discussing and having a talk with Wakili Mercy Yego. The last time I met Mercy, she was still, undergoing pupillage. And right now she's here on Mbia. According to article this and that, this is human right violation. We should treat it as such. There is no in between. And I totally agree with you, Mercy. But then, we must be able to have way forwards in a lot of things. And probably that's the point I want us to come to right now, Mercy. If we were to completely eliminate the issue of FGM and address the issues of the disparities that exist, because poverty remains a major challenge, especially economic challenges. We've seen the current administration doing a lot of efforts in order to address the issue of youth employment and creating what I will call business enterprises in order to address the issue of job employment. We have things such as Kazi Maju, Kazi Mtaani that has been cloned into what now will be referred to as the affordable housing projects and what have you. And today we are talking about Nyota funding that is there with the World Bank assistance, among others. My main question is, we have had even the kitty that is called the Equalization Fund that has worked over the years through the Constitution. How is it possible as of 2026 we are still discussing the issue of imbalance and economic turmoil that is now exposing other communities to these harmful practices? What more can be done in order to address these financial or economic imbalances across the country?
Thank you, Eli, for that. I mean, I'd say, yeah, there are a lot of programs on economic empowerment and youth employment across the country in Kenya. And in relation to FGM, we're not that the people that suffer the most from the practice, of course, who get impacted the most from the practice, the continuation of the practice of women and girls. And you find that a lot of times for these communities, these programs, if you were to do a deep dive and an analysis on it, though that funding most of the time does not get to them. It does not get to the women. It does not get to the women or the youth, the young women who would benefit from it, from these communities. Again, when we go back to the issue of culture in those communities, you find that the men will mostly benefit from those programs. And women will be sidelined because of the. Now, again, we now go back to mindset and patriarchy and the community, the imbalance that culture brings. Because in most of these communities, you'll find that it's always the head of the home who is the man, or the boys in the home who would be considered first when it comes to benefiting from these for the services. As much as the government may put in place, it's open. Nyota, for example, it's for youth. But you'll find that in those communities, it's mostly the male, the young people, the men who will get the funds, who will get the services from the government. So I think earmarking it in such a way that in FGM affected communities, the government putting in place structures or policies in such a way that when it comes to these communities, we're able to find a diversification of these funds, that when it comes down, women are considered, and when they're considered, you'll start to see the transformation in those communities. When they get these resources, you'll see the girls will go back to school. That means they're empowered enough that they will not be coerced or forced into continuing the practice of female genital mutilation, because now they have the resources to be able to support their girls to go back to school. In one of my community interactions, some of the women I interacted with, some of the things that were readily available, not even looking at free money. One of the things they talked about, we're having one-on-one discussions with them, and they did mention that for them in their community, of course, aloe vera is something that grows freely. And they think, if we got a boost from government or whoever would like to support, we have our women groups. We collect this aloe vera and we package it and we sell it. So what they've been doing is they collect the aloe vera sap and they've been selling it to traders who come into the community. That's in Pokot. They would sell it to Somali traders who would come to collect the aloe vera sap. Now, in such a community, if an investment is made for these women groups and a factory is set up for them to be able to, add value to the product and then provide access to market, tell me, Eli, don't you think a transformation would happen in such a community and they would not be relying on bride price? especially for the women.
Yeah.
Don't you think transformation would come to such a community? So those are some of the things. Now, government going into these communities, deep dive and say, okay, let's structure it specifically for the Samburu community, the
Yeah.
Somali community
Yeah.
in Garissa. What can we do differently? We're not going to look at the government programs the same way we offer the government programs in Nairobi
Yeah.
because context is different. So being able to put that into consideration and re-streamlining those programs and ensuring that you factor in that challenges that come with the community practicing female genital mutilation.
Interesting, Mercy. And I really appreciate where you're coming from when you look at the issues and the solutions that we need to be working with to address the issue of FGM. And that said, we need all hands on board. It cannot just be us depending on the local communities themselves to solve the problems. We cannot 100% depend on donor funding because it has proved to be inefficient as we speak today. We've been thrown in a sea and we seem to be grabbing and trying, just to find something to hold on to in order to address this challenge that we call the FGM. Mercy, we are almost coming to the end of this talk. But as we do that, there's something I would love for us to quickly address. How do you create warriors against FGM from the very people that practice it? Remember, they are the very, what I would refer to as the not the medicine men. How do you call these women that really, do the practice itself? There's a name. There's a name to it. And
Back then, they used to be called surgeons, but we cannot call them
we
surgeons.
cannot
They're
call them
called
surgeons. Those are
cutters.
quacks. They are quacks. A
Yes,
surgeon
yes,
is
we actually shut
precise.
down that. Yeah, they used to call them the traditional surgeons, but they're not surgeons. They are cutters,
The cutters. So we
women
have the
cutters. Yeah.
cutters who will depend on this to make a living. Do they really earn money from this? Or what from your research, from your experience, what do they get out of this? Is it just the culture aspect or they are paid something as returns? What exactly happens, Mercy?
So what happens? I will speak for communities that I've worked in, or my own community where I come from. I'm from the Sebe community, and that cuts across Kenya and Uganda. And these women are given money. So every time a girl goes to undergo the cut, they are paid to to carry out the mutilation. So they are paid a certain amount of money. So for them, it's a income generating activity. And nowadays, the
Yeah.
practice doesn't happen only in the even years. You find that because they're trying to evade the law, it happens anytime that is convenient for the family to actually carry it out.
Yeah.
So these surgeons are paid as much as 5,000 Kenya shillings, 10,000, depending on the family and how much they can afford. So I would not say that it's that the cutters are not they're doing it because it's culture. No, they are making money out of it.
Yeah.
But government, we have done a lot of sensitization in communities. A lot of organizations, ActionAid, AMREF, the NGO Board Kenya, there's the Young Youth Advisory um, network in Kenya. There a lot of sensitization. There are many organizations that have been doing sensitization and community dialogues in the community. And we have some of these reformed cutters have now become champions against FGM, what you have termed as warriors
Yeah.
against FGM. And we also have what is called male allyship to end FGM. We have men to end FGM, an organization that works with men and boys to actually end female genital mutilation. So a lot has been done to
Yeah.
fight to have the communities are now taking up this space and being the ones championing and moving forward. I mean, I come from a community that practices. I'm not foreign from I'm somebody from the so we as the people from those communities, we are coming out and choosing to champion the conversation and doing more advocacy and encouraging our communities to actually end FGM. So there's a lot in place. The local leaders are being encouraged. And another I'd say the thing is, as we advance in our efforts to end FGM, of
Yeah.
course, certain members of the community come up with new and innovative ways
Yeah.
of evading the practice. Like
Yeah.
now, an emerging trend in East Africa is what we call medicalization of FGM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so where medical practitioners are being paid to actually carry out the cutting, the
Wait,
mutilation.
it's coming from
Yes,
now the traditional cutter to a qualified medical practitioner who is being
yes,
paid to go ahead with this.
yes.
What is the end goal?
So again, so this is mindset. Social norms are deeply ingrained in our mindset. You've seen instances where they tell you, I mean, you've seen among the Luo community, if you're not a circumcised man, how even if you go to the UK, even if you're 70, when you come back, they will make sure you have, they will just arrest you randomly and
It's
make you
true.
undergo
It's
the.
actually it has. I witnessed
Yeah.
that in my village, and
Ah,
a
yes.
75-year-old man who had lived in the city for quite some time was actually, in quotes, arrested and
Mm-hmm.
forced to undergo the knife.
Exactly. So now you see, with such a community, it's not like circumcision of men, let's say among the Luya community, is something that is how do I put it? It's not something that say they forced it down people's like throats, but it's something in their mind that, you know, if you're not circumcised and if you're not, even if an individual has decided they don't want to be circumcised, but the community considers it that, yeah, you must undergo this practice. It's deep in your mind. It's something that you have been conditioned to over time, continuously, as you know, you keep going. But and because of that, you find that there are people who will continuously want to enforce the practice on women. So when women go to when they're going to give birth, some of them when they're going to give birth in the hospitals, you find that their husbands will come talk to the medical practitioner and tell him, you know, after she's given birth, just, they call it there's a term in our local language, I will say it in English, they say clean it once, like just do away with it once. So when she gives birth and maybe they're doing stitching, just do it all at once when she's got anesthesia, and yeah, she comes out of it.
You know, now that you've talked about this, and I know we still have 6 minutes, I know of an individual who was forced to undergo the knife with the husband. I think they came from the cross-border Hispania. Do they
Yeah.
practice that there? Just close
Yes.
to Hispania? You know,
Yes, Arab countries and some Asian communities are
no, the
also doing that.
Hispania, just close to the Tanzanian border and something. I don't know.
Yes,
There's
yes, yes,
that.
yes.
And that woman, I think she was then aged 45, thereabout, married. The husband
Yes.
insisted she had to undergo the knife. She bled to her death. I know her. She
Yeah.
died.
Yeah, so that's how unfortunate it is that even with medicalization, even when they opt for to go to health facilities or have medical practitioners carry it out, it's dangerous to the extent that, yeah, people lose their lives. I mean, last year we had to rescue a woman that almost bled to death, and we rushed her to a medical facility to get medical support, because now the conversation shifted. Now the cutters now say, oh, now we wear gloves, we do sanitize, we use a blade that is used once. We don't use the same knife over. So there is all of that conversation around, oh, maybe with medicalization it will change. No, it doesn't change. The thing is, you risk dying, you risk um, impairing a woman's life or a girl's like their body for life. And the harms are more than what society would consider goods of practicing FGM. I don't see the benefit of it. I have tried, I have looked, I've opened my eyes, opened my mind, but I still can't find why we should consider it a good practice.
All right, I'll quickly just read through the comments and come to you, Mercy, if you allow me. I know you had given me a strict timer, but well, we can't be speaking to ourselves, do we?
No,
What do
at all.
people want, honestly? A piece of meat on my body? Mbona inawasha mtu? All right.
Okay.
Quite deep. There's also one individual who had shared something. I found it a bit sensitive, but then again, it is their opinion. But let's say traditional culture is not justification for oppression, and that's something you actually mentioned earlier on, Mercy.
Yes.
They're saying we are not ready for this conversation because, well, okay, I might not be able to read all this, Mercy. It's quite
It's a lot.
graphic.
Oh,
It's a lot.
it's very graphic.
Yeah, but the whole question is they are stating, and I think that's a misinformation when it comes to the issue of the clitoris, or I don't know if that's how it's pronounced because it depends if you went to academy or not. It's a very essential part of a woman and her sexuality.
Yes.
Medically, they can describe it as one of the major pleasure points of a woman. And it's also
Yeah.
said that it's also an interesting part that men will find as a pleasure point for them. So they are asking, it doesn't make sense for a man to get rid out of it. It's more of a woman's issue. And I'm thinking, I mean, from the stories I've had, Mercy, it's always the men who say you must be able to, for a lack of a better word, put inaitwaje yenye ilikuwa inawekwa kwa magari to slow down the car at a specific speed limit.
Breaks.
Yes,
Or speed limit.
yes. Is that the case, or it's more than that? Do you want to talk about that?
Um, I know for other people who are not part of the communities, there's the issue of pleasure and the clitoris being one of the parts of the woman's a part of a woman's body of the genitalia that is a pleasure uh, allows a woman to experience pleasure. And I'd say again, it's not women that want it done away with. That's one thing you need to understand. It's the men. You'll find there are men who actually come and tell you, if you're not mutilated, I'm not going to marry you. And now, something that I should share about that recently started happening in our community is what is called the bus ben culture. Bus
Yeah,
ben.
yeah,
So bus ben is like when your son is getting circumcised,
yeah.
then we have when they're getting circumcised. During that ceremony, the woman who is supposed to preside, the mother is supposed to be mutilated for her to take part in the rituals of that ceremony. So if she's not mutilated or cut, then the father looks for another woman who is mutilated or cut to come and take part in the officiating of that ceremony. So that's the basben.
Okay.
So what has happened now is there's now become it created a peer pressure kind of thing among the community. So now men would actually be excluded from gatherings in the community from the point of, oh, your wife is not mutilated, so you can't sit at this table.
Okay.
So that's a new angle, and that's from different communities. So now you find that still it's men who are controlling the conversation around this a lot of the time. And women only carry it out in conflict comes to society. The women who will men and women who will take towards certain, and that's why you have advocating for no that practicing needs to stop. And there are women who will be like, oh, we need to obey what the husband is saying, or what the man of the home is saying, or the elder of the home is saying, who is the man, and say you must undergo the cut. But there is nothing pleasurable or there is nothing good about undergoing the cut because you're not even able to experience pleasure to the full extent after that because part of your genitalia that enables you to undergo that has been removed. But this goes back to the conversation, some of the what we'd consider myths around the origins of FGM. For my community, they say that, back then when the men used to go to war, they would say the practice of FGM came about because they wanted to control the women from being hyper, how to put it, being sexually active when
Yeah.
their husbands had gone to war. Those are some of the myths.
Yeah.
But over time, we have moved from that. We no longer go to war like that. And the practice is still ongoing. So it's a form of, I'd say, a form of control over the being of a woman, not allowing the woman to exist as a whole human being and being in charge of who she is
Yeah.
and being in charge of her own life, wanting to have a certain form of control of, you must do this, you must undergo this. And again, this is a harmful practice. Why are we still, you know? So again, going back to that, it's not women who are pushing for it. No, it's men who are actually pushing for the part.
Interesting. And men, please style up. You can't be forcing vitu ambavyo vimepitwa na wakati on our women. Let these women be their women. I have a very quick question here, and probably that will be among the last one for you, Mercy. Muthoni is asking, what measures are the schools and the health services taking to educate and ensure education on FGM, or rather, that public awareness? Maybe any quick response to that, Mercy?
Yes, in terms of that, a lot has been done. In medical facilities, I know in Kenya they have incorporated it into the health, how do I put it? This is the data set.
Health
I can't find
education?
the right term in my mind. No, in medical facilities. Now, whether a woman when women come for maternal health care, whether a woman has undergone the practice, the government collects that data and statistics to ensure that if she has undergone, if she hasn't, they receive a form of sensitization. Now we have health practitioners are also being sensitized in across the country on, especially in communities practicing FGM, on why communities should abandon the practice, being sensitized on not to accept or be coerced to perform medicalization of FGM, and also to sensitize the community. In school, campaigns have been going on by different organizations. There's TGG, there's ALM. We actually have information out there if you're an individual who would like to be visiting schools and sensitizing young girls. The TGG and Orchid do have some of manuals and information that you can use. We do have anti-FGM clubs in schools. So like for the Global Youth Consortium, some of our members and organizations that are part of the consortium actually do carry out community sensitization. So that's in school, out of school, in the communities, also with medical facilities, at health centers. So I'd say sensitization is happening everywhere within the communities affected by FGM. And we are doing our best to get to every community and reach every child, reach every man, reach every woman. So, but you should not leave it only to the people doing the advocacy, the actors in the space or an organization.
Yeah.
Take it upon yourself as an individual. When you have the chance, I'd urge each one and everyone who is watching today, become an advocate to end FGM. Become an advocate to end child marriage. FGM goes hand in hand or is interlinked with child marriage. So become an advocate. Go ahead and speak about it in your community. Talk to your elders every time you have the opportunity. Talk to your community. Talk to your cousins, your brothers and sisters back home, and tell them, you know what? This is not a good practice. Please do not. You'll find, maybe an 18-year-old saying, oh, I think I should marry a 15-year-old. Tell them, no, that's not right. The conversations always start at home. So take it upon yourself to bring that conversation to your sitting rooms, to your kitchens. Make it an everyday conversation that you remind them that we're not going to adopt or continue the practice of female genital mutilation.
Interesting, and that's a very beautiful way to land this conversation, Mercy. I know the limitation is time, but definitely we'd love to have you on another set to really discuss some of these things that you're doing. And now as Wakili, just in case you guys are coming for me, just know I know Mercy. I know someone atawafunga jela. What message do you have to the men and women that are tuned in tonight? I know you've told them they need to be the advocates for the well-being of these young women specifically, who are undergoing this unnecessary frustration and FGM to be specific. But if there's any one thing we will change today from where you sit, what would that be, Mercy?
In terms of ending FGM?
Yes.
If there is one thing that would change, I'd say is let's stop looking at it as a minor issue, as something that is not significant, that is not a major issue, that is not a crisis. Let's look at it as it should be looked at. It's violence against women. It's a crisis that should be treated with the weight that it carries, that it deserves all the attention that it needs to get in terms of ending it. We should all pay attention and ensure that we not only invest our monies, but our time, our resources, our energies, everything to end FGM. So let's treat it as an urgent, as an emergency, something that needs to end. FGM needs to end now. And I know the goal is to end FGM by 2030. 2030 is, 4 years away. How far are we?
Yeah,
So
2030 is
let's
a very
accelerate.
interesting year. Everything must be tackled. The SDGs 2030. I don't know what is in 2030. If I was 2030, I'll be worried because everything will be falling on me. I wish I was 2032
Yes,
because then I'll
yes,
be the elections cycle for Kenya.
yes. So we said we want to end FGM by 2030, and 2030 is just right around the corner, but the practice is still ongoing. So what are we doing different? So what are we doing different? We are all hands on deck, like Eli said, all hands on deck. Let's all come on board to end FGM.
All hands on deck, ladies and gentlemen. My guest has been, and her name is Mercy Yego. Mercy Yego is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. She is also a very big champion for women and girls' rights. So if you ever try anything that you shouldn't be trying, please do it. And Mercy should not get a wind of what you've done because she will deal with you. Her eyes are on you, guys. Her eyes on you. So as her ears. Mercy, thank you very much for coming. I'll be seeing you in the next one. So sorry, I lost you for a while. Mercy, you're saying?
Yes, I was saying, and if there's anyone in the chat or anyone who is listening in or tuning in, and you're having any issues to do women and children's rights, I'm always a call away. Eli, anything to do with women and children, when it comes to that, I'm just a call away. Feel free to reach out. I can always advise or refer you to an organization that will be able to support, or a government institution.
Definitely. And we will definitely, maybe Mercy, is there any hotline people can call in the event wanajua kuna mtu ameshikwa na anajaribu kuhepa mambo ya kushikwa kwa sababu anajuana na mtu when it comes to FGM? Is there a hotline publicly available? Anything?
Yes, probably I will just share with you. Of course, there's the normal police hotline, but then there are also organizational. You can, if you call FIDA, they will also be able to respond. FIDA is also always on standby. ActionAid also has a few contacts. I will definitely share with Eli. Then you can share with on the social media platforms.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mercy, that information will also be able to share and append it to the video that is also available on Mizani 254 YouTube. This stream was also going live on that platform, so you can always have time to go back. If there's something you missed and you would love to really go back into it, it's available for replay. For now, Mercy, we want to really appreciate you, hoping to see you in the next one, and we wish you a great night, Mercy. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Eli, for having me. And it was wonderful to have this discussion. And hopefully we'll have more discussions unpacking different segments on what we're doing to end FGM.
Well, we are ending FGM today, but tomorrow we are discussing on a very interesting topic. And I hope you'll be there because we are discussing about chemical castration. Looks like men are under attack.
Well, I will reserve my comments on it and join in tomorrow.
Definitely looking forward to that. That was Yego and Asanteni Sana, and that definitely has been a very, very interesting topic to cover and discuss. For those of you who missed out, don't worry. As we promised, this is available on our platform. This has been the social room, and in the social room, everything goes. But before that, why can't we take some breather here?
The Social Room with Likuyani Eli. To advertise with us, reach us via the email marketing@courtfm.co.ke or call us on 0714 308 277. Court FM. Let the music play. Let the music play. You're listening to Court FM. Let the music play.